Chapter 5. I was not chickening out. Not really. Sure, I was afraid. Terrified, even. I was going full coward on this. It's one thing to daydream, as we all have, about going off in a spaceship and having amazing adventures with a giraffe in a business suit. But when the dapper giraffe shows up and it's ready to whisk you off to the stars, I think it's perfectly reasonable to want to crawl into the fetal position. Even so, fear was not calling the shots. If all other things had been equal, I don't think excitement would have had any problem beating out terror. I was not about to miss out on new life and new civilizations, simply because the thought of leaving the planet made me want to wet my pants. I was backing out because I wasn't up to the task. My mom was dying, and she was going to die about the worst death imaginable. If the right person went and convinced the aliens that the human race was worthy, we'd get advanced alien medical knowledge, and my mother would get to live. I didn't want to miss out on the time she had left, but more importantly, I couldn't risk messing things up. I would pass on the adventure of a lifetime and let someone halfway competent take my place. Dr. Roop stood up and actually blocked my way. He looked down from his 8-foot vantage and held out his long arms so that I couldn't pass. Apparently, he was taking no chances.
"I don't think you understand."
"I understand perfectly," I said. "Dr. Roop, I really appreciate this offer. And you have no idea how much I want to go, but I'm not your guy. I'm completely average. I can't fight or play champion-level chess or do math or any of that stuff. I have nothing to contribute. You're better off just getting someone else."
"There is no one else,"
Dr. Roop said, lowering his arms. The dramatic gesture had apparently run its course.
"This is how the process works. The decision of the committee is final, and it has to be that way."
"Trust me," said Mrs. Price, without bothering to look up from her computer. "They won't budge on this point."
"We've learned from experience that nations will go to war to get more of their own people in the initiation delegation," Dr. Roop explained. "The only way to make the process successful and peaceful is to render it immutable."
"So if I don't go, humanity is one man short?" Dr. Roop cocked his head and looked at me with his big yellow eyes, which appeared sad.
"If you don't go, Zeke, humanity is out of the running. We'll try again in 60 years, but if we can't recruit the delegation selected by the committee, then there is no delegation."
I stood there, speechless.
"I know you're thinking about your mother," Dr. Roop said. "If you want her to have a chance at being cured, you must agree to participate."
That changed the scenario. So I nodded, and I sat my butt back down. Mrs. Price continued typing away on her laptop. A glance at her screen told me she was using my time of personal crisis, my moment to make a decision that would affect all of humanity, to catch up on her email. I had so many questions. I hardly even knew where to begin. "When do we leave?" I asked.
"As soon as you're ready," said Mrs. Price, looking up. "The other candidates began meeting with their governments 3 days ago. They have all agreed to participate. At this point, we are waiting for you."
They met 3 days ago, I thought. Wait, you tried to get someone else too. That's how you know they can't change their mind. Mrs. Price did that thing that, for government employees, stood in for a smile. She blinked and pursed her lips.
"We had hoped to put our best foot forward."
"But I'm the foot you're stuck with."
"We are delighted that an American citizen will be part of the delegation," she assured me.
"I can understand why you might feel inadequate," Dr. Roop said, "but random participants often become not simply a part of the team, but major contributors."
"Yeah, I get it," I said, having had enough of the pep talk. I was the resident loser, and that's how it was, so time to move on. Where exactly are we going?
"Ah,"
said Dr. Roop, sitting taller in his chair now that we've moved beyond my protests.
"You will be based for the year on Confederation Central, a massive space station more or less in the center of our territory, and the capital city of our civilization. It's the seat of government, home to several of our finest universities, and has some of the best museums in the galaxy. Approximately 12 million beings are aboard at any given time."
"So it's like Babylon 5, I said.
"Yes and no," Dr. Roop said, without missing a beat. "The station was not built for the purpose it currently serves. In fact, We did not build it at all, but rather inherited it from a species of beings who lived long before us. We call them the Formers.
So the station is like the Citadel from Mass Effect, and these Formers are the Protheans?
Best foot forward,
Mrs. Price said, clearly irritated by my dorking out. Dr. Roop held up a hand.
No, Miss Price. As I explained, these narratives are in part the result of our influence, and Zeke's familiarity with them may prove a genuine advantage.
He turned to me.
I feel certain you must have noticed that my appearance is similar to a creature from your own planet. I am to resemble a gorilla, yes?
A giraffe, I corrected.
Oh, that's right. You're the one who resembles a gorilla. But you must think it rather odd coincidence that I should so closely resemble an Earth creature.
Yeah, but given everything else that's going on, I didn't see the point in bringing it up, I said. I had read and been disappointed to learn that most scientists believed any alien intelligence we might encounter would be so different that communication would likely be impossible. It was the height of self-absorption and fantasy, such theories said, to presume other planets would evolve species that were more or less the same as us. I guess they got it wrong, though.
There are hundreds of planets in the Confederation, but thousands upon thousands of inhabited planets in our galaxy,
Dr. Roop said.
We believe that most, if not all of these worlds, indeed, the systems in which they were located, were partially or entirely altered by the Formers, so that they could sustain life. These planets are all approximately the same size and have similar rotation cycles, atmospheres, climate types, and so on. More than that, the same seed stock of genetic material was deposited on each of these planets.
Here I could have mentioned the Preservers from Star Trek or the Ancients from Stargate. Come to think of it, I also could have mentioned my father's show, Colony Alpha, which featured a mysterious precursor race that had left behind valuable technology. Much of the show revolved around two warring factions' efforts to find and understand ancient artifacts, while the last of Earth's population, located on an isolated colony planet, found itself in the middle. I demonstrated wisdom and restraint by holding my tongue.
Life develops in somewhat similar patterns on many different worlds, Dr. Roop continued. You will see dozens of alien species on Confederation Central, a majority of them bipeds, of approximately 4 to 8 feet in height. This seems to be the direction in which the Formers wished us to evolve. You will see sentient races that look like animals from your world. On some worlds there are likely animals that look like human beings.
Let's not belabor the point,
Mrs. Price said, moving her hand in a circular let's go motion.
It's always a good time to learn, Dr. Roop said. Don't you agree, Mrs. Price?
I work for the government, she answered. So no, I don't agree. Let's talk logistics.
Very well. To remain on schedule, we would like to leave in 2 days. By that time you should be aboard our orbiting spacecraft. That ship will take us to rendezvous with the delegates from another applying species, and then we will go to Confederation Central, where you will attempt to demonstrate your species' abilities to thrive within our society.
And how will I do that? I asked, already sure I was going to fail miserably at whatever they wanted.
We will explain in due course. You need not concern yourself just yet.
And can all 4 of the species become part of the Confederation? I asked. Or only one of us?
Sometimes all 4 groups succeed, and sometimes none do. You are competing against yourselves, not against one another. Any questions?
Yeah, I said. How does space travel work? Most of the stuff I've read says that faster than light travel is impossible.
I shall spare you the details, said Dr. Roop. You only need to know that we travel outside relativistic space, so there are no problems with time dilation, if that was your question.
I'm pretty sure that what you're saying is beyond his concerns,
Mrs. Price said. But, as it happened, that was my nerdy concern. I had a pretty good layman's understanding of the stuff, and according to Einstein, as you approach the speed of light, you not only require exponentially more energy as you acquire more mass, but you also experience the flow of time differently than the universe around you. The closer you got to light speed, the more variance between the vessel and everything else outside it. So at high speeds, a trip that only takes a few months for a crew of a ship would happen over centuries for everyone else. I was glad to hear that these Confederation guys had found a way around that problem. And it's all safe? I asked.
There are risks, of course, said Dr. Roop, but our safety record is significantly better than that of your auto travels on this planet, and superior even to your own aviation travels.
That was good to know, but no matter how safe it was, my mother was not going to like the idea of me going off into space. Apparently reading my mind, Mrs. Price handed me a file containing an alarmingly thick document. "What's this?" I asked.
That, she said, is a permission slip